Okay, so today's episode, Shut Up and Dance, revolves around Kenny, an awkward young man who gets blackmailed by a group of hackers who broke into his computer and recorded him jacking off. They threaten to release the footage unless Kenny does whatever they ask him to. At first, it's small things like, oh, go deliver this cake, but as the episode goes on, their requests gradually start becoming more intense. Okay, first off, I should make it pretty clear that I find this episode to be fucking terrifying. Growing up, I was constantly warned about the dangers of the internet, how any person I met in there could potentially be a killer or a kidnapper, and how hackers could hack my computer, and you know the drill. So because of these warnings, I became the type of person who puts tape over my laptop's webcam, and back when Facebook was brand new, I even used an alias instead of my real name. So right off the bat, this episode touches upon a deep fear of mine, so points for that, I guess. Another thing I really liked about this episode is that it felt really realistic. Like, this is the type of thing which I could totally buy happening in real life, so that makes it even scarier. I especially liked how we don't really know where the malware came from. It could have either come from Kenny's sister trying to download a pirated movie, or from Kenny downloading a malware removal program. I like that they kept it ambiguous like that. Anyways, later into the episode, we find out that Kenny isn't the only one getting blackmailed. There's at least 4 other people who are in a similar situation as his. Now, the thing that really stood out to me about them, though, is that
one of these things is not like the others. Which one is different? Do you know? Tell me which thing is not like the others, and I'll tell you if it is so.
all the characters that are blackmailed in the episode did some really shitty things, with the only exception being RMC, Kenny. Kenny's only crime is that he masturbated. That's it.
Well, everyone does that. The fucking Pope probably does that.
Unlike his contemporaries, I got the impression that Kenny's a good person overall. He's nice to kids, he's a good son. His only flaw is that he's really awkward and shy. That's it. And that's obviously not his fault. And also, this brings up another concern. Like, Kenny, buddy, I get that you don't want your old face out there, but robbing a bank to avoid that is going a bit too far there, don't you think? Like, hey, why not just call the cops instead?
What did you do, Kenny? They say it's kids. You've been looking at kids.
Excuse me. Someone forgot this.
Oh, thank you. What'd you say?
Thank you.
It's all right.
She forgets everything. Thanks again.
You people are horrible. Isn't it amazing how just one sentence can completely change the entire tone of a scene? And not only that, but also Kenny's character as a whole? Like, before the ending, I saw this scene as being really cute. Like, oh my god, I even remember thinking to myself, aw, that's so sweet. He's gonna be a great father one day. Ah, that's so fucked up. Come on, okay. This ending right here is by far the best ending in the entire season, easily. It makes you reevaluate everything that came before it, and unlike Playtest's ending, there's actually a lot of build-up and foreshadowing towards it. It doesn't just come out of nowhere. All throughout the episode, you're made to feel really bad for Kenny, but after the twist, all the sympathy and empathy I had for the character was put into question. Like, with Kenny's true colors now in the open, does that mean that he deserves what happened to him? Well, no. Yeah, kind of ish. Like, okay. Honestly, it's kind of hard to answer that because, like, this is a group of people who did some pretty horrible things and are doing even more horrible things to try and cover it up. And in a way, they kind of got themselves into this situation. Like, they don't have to do what the hackers say. You don't have to rob this bank. You don't have to fight this guy. It's not like there's a literal gun to their heads. They could just face the consequences of their actions instead, but they choose not to. They'd rather do what they're told than be exposed. Another thing that complicates things a bit here is that, in a weird and disturbing way, the hackers could be viewed as the good guys. At its core, this is a group of people who expose pedophiles, racists, and adulterers. If all they did was expose these people to the public, then they'd be heroes. Like, the final stage of their punishment was actually a good deed. By exposing these people to the police and their relatives, they kind of made the world a better place. Don't misunderstand me though, the hackers are still horrible, horrible people, but it'd be dishonest to say that everything they did was 100% bad. Honestly, what I think this all comes down to in regards to Kenny is your stance on pedophilia, and yes, we're going there. Now, obviously we can all agree that having sex with children is wrong, but what I'm referring to here is in regards to what should be done with pedophiles who haven't acted upon their desires. As far as we know, Kenny hasn't actually molested any children. He's only gotten as far as looking at child porn. And I know that right there is enough to warrant an arrest in most countries, but okay, before I continue, I should clarify that I am in no way defending the people who watch this garbage. Like, yes, they do indirectly support the production of this type of thing, but I just think that Kenny and people like him they could still be saved. Kenny seems to know that what he did was wrong. He hates the fact that he's attracted to what he's attracted to. I don't see Kenny as a monster who deserves to be punished. I see him as someone who needs help. Like, despite what he did, no one deserves to go through something like this. Especially because there's a pretty good chance that Kenny might be autistic. Now, before I continue, I should clarify that I am being serious. I'm aware that autism has unfortunately become a sort of meme and joke, but again, I'm not joking, I'm being serious. Kenny shows a lot of symptoms that people with autism have. If you've ever met someone with autism, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. He hyperventilates, he has trouble expressing himself when in distress, he shakes a lot, he's uncomfortable when people touch him. You know, the signs are there. However, I should clarify that the episode never straight up tells you that Kenny has any sort of disability. What I'm trying to say here is that this is pure speculation, basically. Anyways, as you could probably tell by the video so far, I'm a pretty big fan of this episode. However, I do have a few gripes with it, unfortunately. First, let's get the most obvious one out of the way. The troll face. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up isn't because I found it to be cringy or forced like some other people were saying, but instead because to me, having it here dates the episode considerably. Like, the troll face is in and of itself a pretty dated meme already, so I'm just kinda worried that 30 years from now, people are gonna look at this scene and are probably gonna be pretty confused on what this image even is. That being said though, currently the scene works perfectly fine with it. The troll face did a fine job of acting as a sort of twisting of the knife for the characters. The other gripe I had with this episode was in regards to its unnecessary inclusion of flashbacks in the ending. To me, they just break the flow of the scene and don't seem to serve any purpose. Like, if for whatever reason the viewer forgot who these people were, then that's on them. You shouldn't have these obnoxious flashbacks just because Larry over here was looking at his phone for half the episode. However, I should again clarify that these are pretty minor gripes in an otherwise perfect episode. I honestly found this episode to be pretty fantastic overall. Big fan